Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I'm really excited to have our amazing guest here with us today. Would you like to introduce yourself and give everyone a little bit synopsis of who you are and your position in the adoption world?
Sure. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Amanda Aliberti. I'm an adoption counselor for Adoptions from the Heart. I actually work out of our Newark, Delaware office of the agency. I've been working here for almost 8 years. So my position entails working with both birth parents, who are the individuals who place their child for adoption, and then the adopting family, who ultimately adopts the child. So I counsel both sides, and then we ultimately help coordinate the placement of babies at the hospital.
So, we all know a little bit about the normal adoption process, but I'm not sure if many people know what it takes to place a child for adoption. So what does that process kind of look like? Does it take a long time? Does it cost any money?
So I think oftentimes when people hear about adoption, their mind immediately goes to, oh, what a wonderful thing, this adopting family. They think about the child and all these great things. But oftentimes the birth parent experience is left untold. So I think that it's really important for people to realize that it is a process, it is a journey. It's one of the most difficult decisions a woman or a man can make in deciding to place their child for adoption. So it definitely is a process. Women and men come to us at any point. They can come to us as soon as they find out that they're pregnant. Maybe they're only 1 month or 2 months long. Or we get calls from the hospital of women who just delivered a baby and they're interested in placing that child for adoption. So it really just depends on the client and what they're comfortable with, what their particular situation is. But part of the process is coming to our agency, connecting with a social worker who will really be your advocate and somebody that can kind of take you on your journey as you're placing your child for adoption. There's no fees associated with placing your child for adoption. We provide free counseling and supportive services before, during, and after placement.
And you briefly touched upon it, saying it is one of the hardest decisions anyone could ever make. So what exactly is that mindset, or because you work with the birth parents one-on-one, so how exactly does their mental stability become affected by this?
Yeah, I mean, I think that being able to put your child's needs first is one of the hardest responsibilities of being a parent. And the same thing holds true for a birth parent. Women come to us for many reasons in choosing to place their child for adoption. I think the number one reason is that financially, they're just not in a good place to be able to afford to give that child the life that he or she deserves. So they ultimately choose an adoptive family that can provide that for them. Sometimes there are addiction concerns or mental health concerns that are prohibiting them from giving them a good life. But I think the biggest challenge that society needs to recognize is that these are people too. And they have feelings, they have struggles, they have, a heart. They're not doing this because they want to do it. They're doing it because they know it's in the best interests of their child and they love them enough to do this for them.
What are the differences between open and closed adoption? And is it the adoptive parent's role to choose it, or is it the birth parent's role to choose that?
Open adoption, the basis behind it is the ability to have some level of contact between the adoptive family and the child, and then the birth family. Okay, there's various levels of openness. For our agency, we have minimum requirements when adoptive families come into our program. So they have to be open to a minimum of meeting their expecting parent during the prenatal period, if their expecting parent wants that, and that they have to send pictures and letters for different durations during the child's life. They also have to be open to at least one yearly visit to have a visit with their birth parent if their birth parent requests it. So that's a minimum. Okay, we definitely have birth parents that come into our agency wanting a closed adoption. Okay, they do not want to have any sort of contact, and that is just their preference and what they're comfortable with. So our agency does a really great job of making sure we only present profiles of adoptive families that are at the same level of openness of what a birth parent is looking for. So this way we know that both sides are on the same page and have the same expectations of what the future will look like. Because while we have some birth parents that want a closed adoption, we have some birth parents that want 4 visits a year, direct email exchange. Nowadays with all the technology we have, video chats, Skype, all these things that are coming about that are great resources to connect with your birth parent. So there's different levels, and we ultimately allow the birth parent to choose what they are comfortable with, because this is about their decision, their choice, and what works for them and their child.
There are a lot of negative stereotypes that just surround birth parents and who they are. But since you've worked with them, what are they actually like? Because when you look on all of the TV shows, the movies, they're teenagers that got pregnant too early and now they have a problem. What are they actually like?
Interesting. When I'm asked the question, and I'm asked that question quite often, of what is a birth parent like, I immediately start smiling. The reason being, my immediate response to that question is they are some of the most inspiring, amazing, wonderful individuals you could ever meet. And they truly make me so happy every time I meet with them and talk with them, because to see a woman and a man have such courage to be able to make this plan, you have to have just an amazing heart. So they really are just wonderful people. I can't say that enough. But in answer to what you were asking for, so I think that the stereotype of a birth parent is that they are a teenager or they are a drug addicted person, right? Those are kind of the two big ones that we see. It's actually the complete opposite. The typical birth parent that comes to our agency is usually in her late 20s or his late 20s, early 30s, and are already parenting a child. The reason being, they know the responsibilities of what it looks like to parent because they have a child already, and they know that they can't do it for another child. Actually, teenage birth parents, typically what we see is that their families will end up stepping in to help parent, and then they don't place their child for adoption. And again, the number one reason why we see women and men place is due to financial reasons. They're just not in the place to be able to parent. So while drug addiction does play into that, or mental health concerns, I would say on the norm, it's financial reasons.
And going back to your first point, I have taken part in quite a few adoptions from the heart events, and the birth parents there are so nice. They were so willing just to talk to me and share their story. And that really just is so inspiring, as you said. So I can vouch for that.
Yeah. Thanks.
Moving on to our next question, do you think the birth parent's role in a child's life is just as important as the adoptive parents in an open adoption?
I absolutely think that the birth parent's role in open adoption is just as important as the adoptive family. It has most certainly been proven that an adoptee that grows up that has some sort of connection to their birth family, whether that's just having an awareness of who they are and the reasons why they placed, all the way up until, they do have contact of yearly visits or picture and letter exchange, whatever it might be. They ultimately are able to self-identify easier. There's fewer questions, less of the, oh, I wonder what happened, or I'll never know my truth. That's really difficult. And while not all adoptees want to have a connection to their birth family, a majority want to at least have some sort of awareness. And I think that it's important that we give that to that child, and we allow them to go through that door of connecting with their birth family if and when they want that. So if a birth parent is in a place where they're willing to have that connection, we always encourage it. We are an open adoption agency. That's what we believe in. That's the foundation of adoptions from the heart. And we really do believe that it ultimately helps a child. It's not even about the adopted parents or the birth parents. It's about that child and being able to have a connection to their story. And they deserve that.
So how exactly is this pandemic affecting birth parents? And is there any way that we can help
I think COVID-19 has certainly brought on many challenges for all of us. And what people, I think, failed to realize in the beginning was that this is particularly affecting birth parents. I actually just ran a virtual birth parent support group this past Wednesday. What we're chatting about is how COVID has affected birth parents. You know, the idea of feeling isolated and alone and just being in your feelings and your thoughts, I think hits birth parents extra hard, and they're extremely sensitive now, and their feelings and emotions associated with their adoption plan are heightened because there's just less going on that kind of distracts them. So I think birth parents particularly are just feeling even more anxious, wondering if their child is okay, wondering if the adoptive family is okay, and that nobody in their world is affected with corona. We've had a lot of canceled and postponed visits between birth parents and adoptive families. We just unfortunately had to cancel our Adoptions from the Heart picnic, which is just sad and disappointing because oftentimes that is the opportunity where birth parents get to have a visit with their children. So that's been really difficult. But I also will say that a lot of adoptive families have stepped up to the plate. It's been wonderful to see them setting up alternatives to these visits. So having video chats and Zoom calls with their birth parents just to check in with them, sending some extra photos or a quick video of their child doing something cute just to kind of make their birth parent smile. All those things have really helped during this time of birth parents feeling really alone. Just to hit on one more challenge, birth parents have also been in a place of financial hardship. So many of them have lost their jobs. You know, if they're waitressing at IHOP, clearly IHOP is not operating right now, and a lot of them have been laid off. So that's been really challenging. And to see adopting families also step up to the plate in that regard, sending gift cards, sending some extra money to help with food or rent, making donations has been really, really wonderful and really helping these birth parents seeing light at the end of the tunnel of what's going on.
Really amazing. And also, we just recently had the Find Their Footing 5K. I saw you were on social media as well, doing a bunch of advocating and just being amazing overall. But there's a fund that anyone can donate to at any time.
Yeah, so we have an Adoptions from the Heart Expecting and Birth Parent Fund. It's wonderful. It's a good opportunity when we do have a client who is struggling, whether it's before, during, or after placement. I mean, he or she could have placed 10 years ago and they call in and say, hey, Amanda, I just lost my job, or I don't have food this month to put in the refrigerator for my kids that I'm parenting. Can you help? We can reach out to that fund and get some donations to help these birth parents. So having fundraisers like the virtual 5K, which we did recently, has been wonderful because people are using this time to, get together with their families and make donations to a fund that actually does something. And these birth parents can vouch for that. These birth moms will get on camera and tell you, I made a call and I was able to see results within a few days so I could avoid getting evicted, because it is that quick. Your donations mean so much to them, and this fund really does go a long way. So we were really happy with the virtual 5K and the amount of people that stepped up. Even though we are in the middle of COVID, people went outside and did their walk or their run and really contributed to Adoptions from the Heart and our birth parents. So thank you.
Also, going off of the pandemic sort of theme we have going here, what does the placing for adoption process kind of look like right now? Are you seeing more pregnant women coming to you saying that they want to adopt or place, sorry, and how does the hospital play into that role too?
When COVID first broke out, we were a little concerned of what would this look like. Clearly our job, performance is operating a little bit differently. So we're not able to go into the office every day. We're not able to have as much face-to-face contact with our clients. So we are doing a lot of virtual counseling through Zoom or FaceTime or whatnot. We had a couple of clients that were concerned with, like, what is this going to look like for my child that I'm about to place, right? So is the family free of corona? Where's the baby going? There was a little bit of concern at the beginning of that, but overall I would say we are still seeing high numbers of placements. Women and men are still placing their child for adoption, and I think that even more so, financial challenges have been faced by these birth parents. So, the idea of I'm not in the place to parent my child is still present. The hospitals overall have been wonderful in working with us, and they themselves are trying to figure out their hospital policies and procedures with restrictions and whatnot. But we're still managing. We're still doing placements and being able to come in at least ourselves to the hospitals to discharge babies and place babies with their forever families. So it's still happening. There's just a lot of restrictions to it, a lot of boundaries, and we're kind of having to maneuver in different ways. But that's what we do as counselors. We just kind of hop in there and we do what we can do.
And you guys are amazing at it anyway. We salute you 100%. You are definitely essential workers during this time.
That's kind of you to say.
Okay, well, we knocked off all of the questions on my list. So I wanted to thank you again so much for being on here. Do you have any last messages of hope for all of our viewers, or just any last words you would like everyone to know?
I think that any type of awareness we can give the community about adoption and the different layers that go into adoption, particularly birth parents, because their voice is oftentimes left unheard. And I think it's just really great for individuals like yourself to continue spreading the word and making awareness about adoption and the wonderful services we can offer. And just thank you to the community for being kind enough to step up and, take part in these fundraisers and donations and things that we're doing, and just continuing to be involved and working together. So thank you to you for doing projects like this, and I'm excited.
Woo, thank you again.